Real people, real opinions, real talk radio. The multi-award-winning Niall Boylan Show.
Good evening, Niall. Not too bad. And yourself?
Willie, I'm looking in the paper here over the weekend. Of course, you got a bit of traction for your comments in relation to Helen McEntee, the Justice Minister, and I suppose what she's been doing over the last year or so. And you said she should focus on tackling crime and stop playing to the woke people. Now, I'm assuming you're talking about her latest, I suppose, the legislation in relation to hate speech, other things that she has mentioned that she has brought in. She was quite complimentary to herself the other day, talking about the different pieces of legislation she brought in. But you're more focused on, I suppose, what's happening on the street and the amount of Garda Síochána.
Well, yes, I mean, I have to deal with her meeting on the street now, because, I mean, as I say, as a local public representative representing people here on the ground, I mean, I have to take into account what they're saying to me. And, I mean, when I go out door knocking with some of our councillors or, candidates with the forthcoming local elections, and I was out of them again over the weekend, very few people ask me about the hate crime bill. There seems to be no great demand for it. Very few people ask me about other pieces of legislation which the ministers brought in, worldly though they may be. But every second or third person I meet has asked me about antisocial behaviour. And I go to meetings, 2 or 3 meetings per week, meeting residents' associations representing people, some of whom are quite elderly and quite vulnerable, who have gangs of young people knocking on their doors at 12 and 1 o'clock in the morning, breaking their windows. We had an incident there last night where a couple of people had flowers planted at their doors and the flowers were burnt, interfering with their cars and just acting with apparent total impunity.
Which is, she will argue that Rome wasn't built in a day, I suppose. I can only put her argument across that Rome wasn't built in a day. She's limited by the resources that she has in relation to Garda Síochána. We're not seeing the recruitment that we would have seen many years ago, and it's quite difficult to get people to even join the Guards now. So we don't have the same number of feet on the ground, so to speak, and I suppose that's going to be her argument.
Well, that's a valid argument, of course, but in response to that argument, I would say there's a couple of things she could be and should be doing. Well, first of all, I don't think she's paid sufficient attention to this because I've never heard her talk about antisocial behaviour in the door since she became Minister of Justice. Maybe she has, and it passed me by. Certainly she hasn't.
I think it passed me by too, by the way. Can I just point out? Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a couple of things she could do. Now, for example, I've come across some cases, now not all, but some cases, where it's absolutely crystal clear to me that the parents of some of those kids are making absolutely no attempt to control them. And when people who are victims approach the parents, they're often dealt with in a pretty rough manner. I'll give you an example. A lady came to me there last week. She's a widow. Now, her windows have been broken twice, and her sole source of income is widow's pension. Now, on the first occasion, I got some assistance from the Department of Social Welfare to help her replace the windows, which, of course, you won't get 100%. On the second occasion, now I've applied again to the Department of Social Welfare, which is the taxpayer, to help her repair her windows. But again, she's going to have to fuck off herself. I know the kids involved, and I know their parents, and their parents are absolutely
and everybody probably knows them. Yeah, everybody knows them.
Everybody knows them. Now, if you had a system whereby, when it could be established to the satisfaction of a judge that the parents weren't making adequate effort to control their kids, I think the parents should be made responsible.
But you see, Willie, what happens in the courts. The parents of these children or these children themselves get a slap on the hand and told to go away and behave themselves. And you'll have some free legal aid lawyer standing up there and saying, "Oh, Your Honour, he's had a bad childhood and he's going to change his ways now." I mean, the only way people have suggested in the past, and I don't know whether you would agree with it, would be, when you have antisocial behaviour for, a minor of 14 or 15 years of age, that the parents get a fine and hit them in the pocket. Is that a thing?
Hit them in the pocket is the thing. That is what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm not saying that, okay, there are some cases where the parents genuinely don't know what their kids are up to. I mean, they should, but they don't. And I
don't buy that. Personally, I don't buy that argument, Willie, because I have 3 children. Now, they're all in their 20s now, but when they were 14 years of age, I knew exactly where they were.
I know. Well, there are some, I have come across some cases as well, as I'm sure you've seen yourself, where some kids are just simply out of control. The parents, the best will in the world, can't control them. Where the parents are making no effort at all, I think. At a minimum, where the parents are making no effort at all, there should be a fine. Now, there's another thing as well that the government should be doing. When I was Junior Minister for Justice and Michael McDowell was my Senior Minister, he tried to set up a thing called the Garda Reserve, where you have these reserve Gardaí who would be very useful for patrolling the streets, at least so that those people could see them at night, so they'd see somebody in uniform, so they'd know there could be reports.
I was only talking about this the other day when I lived in Edenmore, which had its fair share of antisocial behaviour in Dublin. It was a Dublin Corporation area, and that's where I was raised. But I remember we'd be hanging out on street corners or whatever it is, and you'd see 2 guards constantly walking around the housing estate, and that was enough to put the fear of God in you, and send you home if you were up too late.
That's true. But I think that's true. But I think if there aren't sufficient gas to go around, which there aren't at the moment, because as you said, there has been a fall off in recruitment, and I suppose the minister can only do something. He can't do very much.
I suppose paying them a good wage might encourage them.
That would help, yes. That would help, certainly. But there are alternative sources of employment now, I find. But anyway, look, the thing is that I don't see why. I mean, when Michael McDowell mooted the idea of the Garda Reserve, I was overwhelmed, I must say, by the amount of people who were interested in signing up. Mm-hmm. And, you do a certain small amount. It wouldn't be the overwhelming amount of time to train people as to what they have to do, etc.
The basics in public order.
Visibility. Exactly, but there would be visibility. I mean, I've gone out late at night myself when I get phone calls at home and see those gangs roaming around doing what they want to and not a guard in sight. I mean, visibility would have an impact here. I'm convinced of that.
I mean, the other issue, Willie, of course, is social and you talked about social deprivation and poverty, which are kind of key factors in why we see a lot of kids committing crimes or why we see people committing crimes, which is poverty. I mean, a lot of this is generational. When we look at certain housing estates across the country, and we've seen it in Dublin, by the way, in relation to Ballyfermot and Cherry Orchard, and the way the guards are treated even if they go into the area, they've become almost no-go zones. And there's many of those no-go zones right around the country, in Limerick and in Cork and in Galway, where the guards just don't go in because it's just not worth it. It's dangerous. I mean, that's a bad situation, isn't it?
That's a bad situation, and that's exactly where you need the Garda Reserve. But I wouldn't agree that it's totally down to that. I mean, I think there's the class element. I think in this has been reduced. I mean, I know of areas where the houses, and you get a pretty good house down here, and whatever about Dublin, you get a pretty good house down here for £500,000, where there are £500,000 houses, and they're suffering from this antisocial behaviour as well. And I know for a fact that a lot of the kids involved are local. They're not coming in from some dead man's gulch or some inner city area or something like that. I mean, it's a whole sense of impunity that there's nothing to stop them. And
everything you've said so far, I couldn't agree with you more, and I've been saying it for years, is what we need to tackle, because the problem is the major crimes that we see in society by the adults, by the 25-year-olds and the 30-year-olds, they're all people who started off committing criminal acts when they were 14 or 15 years of age and got away with it. And if you nip it in the bud at an early age, you can stop crime in the future. But I suppose a lot of people were saying, well, hold on for a second, that's all well and good, Willie, but having a go with the minister over her playing to the woke gallery. In relation to the hate speech laws, did you object to them, by the way?
I did actually, and I raised it with the Taoiseach actually in the Dáil the week before we went into recess. I said that I was concerned. I said that, when this thing was produced first, there's so much legislation being produced now from the different departments, particularly the Department of Justice. Maybe I didn't focus sufficiently on this and it came out first, but because of all the correspondence I got, I focused on it in the meantime. And I found it's a horrendous piece of legislation, really. I mean,
well, it's flawed. It's inherently flawed. But then how do you think the minister has kind of railroaded it through?
But maybe people haven't read it in full. I mean, maybe I have an advantage. I'm a lawyer. I've read it. I don't know how it's going to be implemented, because there's 2 approaches to it, that the guards can take. The first approach is to kind of ignore it, more or less, and the second approach is if you want to interpret it strictly and pursue it strictly, it's a horrendous instrument for speech control.
There is a possible contradiction. Well, there's 2 possible contradictions in the legislation, which is the first contradiction is you're entitled to freedom of expression under Article 12, I think it is, of the Constitution. And the second part of it is this presumption of guilt instead of innocence when a guard goes into your home, based on the assumption that you might have something that you're not even intending to use.
That's right. That's absolutely correct. And, there's all sorts of things in there about citizens' arrest and all that. I mean, that's a very dangerous road to be going down.
No, you couldn't.
And look, the point is that the point I raised with the Taoiseach in the Dáil, and I think his reply was a bit stupid, to be honest with you. I mean, I said, what I'm concerned about, apart from I hadn't time to get into all the technicalities of the bill, but what I said was, look, people are coming to me from the organisations representing people that the bill is supposed to protect, and they're all unhappy with it. Now, if the organisations representing people who are unhappy with the bill are protesting about it, I mean, there's obviously something wrong.
Well, with the exception of a few, and I've spoken about it intensely over the last couple of months, and with the exception of a few, even the people that I would be considered to be slightly right and conservative, but even the people that I would have on the show that I would regularly get to balance the show out who are far field left, they even disagree with it. The majority of them. So she does seem to be playing to the kind of minority and the NGOs, I suppose, which is, by the way, maybe that's the next investigation after RT and the HSE. The NGOs, the overfunded NGOs in this country, she seems to be playing to them.
Yeah, but the NGOs have sort of come out publicly in support of this bill. A lot of their members, a lot of the people they represent on the ground have come to me and have sent me emails and correspondence, which I've retained and which I can show to anybody, objecting in the most vehement manner to the bill. So, if there's anything you see where the extreme left and the extreme right are agreed on, I'm sure it's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So she is playing to the gallery. I think we've all agreed on that one as well. Well, Willie, I have to say, I'm not going to say it's the first time I've agreed with you. By the way, I've agreed with you many times in the past, but I agree with almost everything you're saying today. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that on the air. But look, the Minister, I'm sure, would disagree with you and believes that she's doing a good job as Minister for Justice. By the way, the elections are coming soon, Willie. You're very confident, are you?
Well, if she comes down to Limerick, I'll take her around a few places and I'll show her how good job has been done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, the election timetable, as I understand it, will be that the local elections are on next June, which is now about 11 months away. And I would say myself, certainly if I've had the deciding of it, there will be a general election shortly thereafter, I would say possibly October, November of next year. So, it's time to measure up now, and let's forget about these sort of elitist minorities who have time and space to focus on these things. Let's try to protect the little people who are trying to live out their lives, their ordinary lives in their ordinary homes, and deserve a bit of peace and quiet.
All right, well, look, it's been nice talking to you, and I appreciate you coming on the air to talk to us this evening. Thank you very much indeed, Willie O'Dea.
See you now. Cheers.
Real people, real opinions, real talk radio. The multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.